Hello, welcome to TechPoint Fundamentals YouTube channel. In this video, today we will learn about content negotiation, and this is the most common interview question when you are giving an interview for API developer or REST API developer. So this is the common interview questions, and apart from this, we will also see some interview questions which is based on this content negotiation. What is content negotiation and why it is important, what HTTP request properties are used for content negotiation in web API, what is difference between accept and content type HTTP request header, what is the default response format in web API, can you force the web API to return JSON response only, and similarly can you force web API to return XML response only. How can you implement custom media type formatter in web API, and what is media type formatter and how it is different from media type mapping, how you can implement indentation in web API, and how you can force camel caching in web API response. So we will see all these questions one by one in this video. So let's start the video. First of all, what is content negotiation? Before answering this question, if you remember, I have already posted a video on polymorphism in C#. I have also written an article. You can visit my website techpointfunda.com and you can read that article. So in polymorphism, there is one thing, many form, means you can define multiple methods with same name but different argument, and similarly when user call that method, in that case based on the parameter the CLR decides which method should be invoked, right? So similarly here, one thing many form, so will be only one resource, and based on user input, the engine decide which response format it should return to the user agent or client. So the actual definition, if you see the content negotiation in HTTP, content negotiation is a mechanism that is used for serving different representations. Different representations means it can be either JSON, either XML or CSV, JavaScript, HTML, whatever you want, you can add a resource at the same URI. Same URI can return multiple representation formats of the response, so that the user agent can specify which is best suited for the user or client. So here user agent can specify that what are the different formats it support and what is the best suited or best representation that it can handle, because a user agent can send or pass multiple formats while requesting. I will show you that demo. So the official definition for content negotiation in HTTP, content negotiation is the mechanism that is used for serving different representations of a resource at the same URI, so that the user agent can specify which is best suited for the user or agent. So in web API, by default there are two representation, XML and JSON. Previously the XML is the most appropriate way to communicate between different servers. But now, since being a lightweighted, the JSON is most probably used in almost application. So that's why the web API support both JSON and XML. But by default, the web API return JSON because it's lightweight and there is no additional XML tags, right? That's why this JSON format is much lighter than XML. But there are different parameters as well on which uh, the MUC engine decides that what format should be there for the sending response. I will show you that one by one in the demo. So now the one question which comes in our mind, that what are the attributes which decide content negotiation? So there are main two things, a content type and accept, that determine the request and response formats. But there are additional attributes as well, for example Accept-Charset and Accept-Encoding and accept language. So content type represents the posting data type. When user post any data in the body, request body, in that case what is the format of that, whether it is JSON or XML. So that defines the content type. So let me first run this project, and I have already written a simple web API. In this web API I have written controller customer, and in this customer I have written a simple web API customer details, which return the uh, customer data. I have initialized the values here, and similarly add customer, which is post, and from this I am returning the same model which we are uh, getting from the user. Similarly a health check, this is nothing but a simple plain message, and also customer information. And if you see here, I have not used this HTTP action result here, so I have directly used HTTP response message. So in this response message I will show you that how the content negotiation works and how the response format is generated. So I have run this application. So for this demo I am using R client. You can use either Fiddler or Postman or any HTTP client, right? So I am using this R client now. So this content type represents posting data type like application JSON or application XML. So if you see here, this is content type. It says application JSON. It means the data which I am posting to the server is in JSON format. And accept, it lists the MIME type of media resource that the user agent is willing to process. It means whatever format, whatever the response format the client wants from the server, whether it is JSON or XML or any other format. For this example, if you see here, I am defining content type as JSON, and if you execute this request, I am getting XML format here. Why XML? Because if you see, I have defined this accept type as XML. It means I want the response format in XML. That's why the server is returning XML format here. Similarly, if I want JSON, then you will get JSON format, right? Similarly, there are some other for parameters as well. Accept char set, the acceptable character set which is used for encoding and decoding. So in web API or any programming language, there are different type of character set. For example, UTF-8, UTF-16, ISO 88591. So there are different types of char set that user can specify. Similarly, the accept encoding, for example, gzip is one way, and there are other accept encoding as well. If you see in the response here, uh, content type, if you see here, it defines content type. By default it use UTF-8 char set, that is same here. If you see UTF-8, you can also specify this char set in the attribute as well, and this is the default one. And now if you see here, accept language is ENUS. Accept language is the preferred natural language, for example, ENUS, ENUK, or you can specify other language as well. So if you see here, accept language is even ENUS, content type, and accept user agent, and similarly accept char set is UTF-8. So these are attributes which are used, and you can also pass these while you are requesting any web API. So in order to fulfill these requirements, what type of response should be generated from the web API, there are some things which determine and which calculate all these input parameter and return the format which is most appropriate for the client or user. So depending on the accept header and content type value in the request object, the server sends the response. This is called the web API content negotiation. So based on these input parameters, these are basically request header parameters, and based on this the server decides what should be the response format. So to do this, there are some thing called MediaTypeFormatters which is used to decide and encode these different formats. So MediaTypeFormatters. So what is MediaTypeFormatter? MediaTypeFormatter is an abstract class from where the media formatters are derived from. So let me show you MediaTypeFormatter. MediaTypeFormatter is an abstract class from where media formatters are derived from. So there is one abstract class MediaTypeFormatter, and from that there are different child class which are derived from this abstract class, and these are known as media formatters. And by default in web API there are 4 media type formatters: JsonMediaTypeFormatter, XmlMediaTypeFormatter, FormUrlEncodedMediaTypeFormatter, and JQueryMvcFormUrlEncodedFormatter. So these are inherited or derived from MediaTypeFormatter, that is abstract class, and these are used. For example, if you have a user requested for JSON, then this is used. If requested for XML, in that case this formatter will be used. Now to support these, there are two things: deserialization and serialization. Two things: when the user passes some content from the request body, they should be deserialized, and serialized as well if you server has to send something. So there are two process as well, serialization and deserialization, which is done by the web API also. So to support this, there are one more thing which is used by these formatters, that is media type mapping. In media type mapping class provide a generic way to match HTTP request with media types. So in web API there are different way from where the server or web API catch the value or accept the value from query string mapping, URI path extension mapping, request header mapping, and media range mapping. These are the different mapping, media type mapping. I will show you how you can use these media type mapping in formatters. Supported media type collection. What is supported media type collection? So supported media type collection is a collection which contains the all supported media type for any formatter. Similarly, media type mapping as well, it contains media type mapping list for any formatter. These formatters are used these collection, and when any user request for any specific format, in that case the server match from these collections, supported media type collection and media type mapping collection. If it match from anyone, in that case it will be used for content negotiation. So one more thing I would like to tell here, that content negotiation is negotiation, it's not an order, right? So it is negotiation. So it might be possible the request format which you are asking is not supported by the server. In that case the default content negotiation happen, and whatever will be the default format, the server returns in that format. I will show you that. So now I will show you the first API which I have written, that is customer detail. And in this customer detail I am just returning the customer data. So customer details, if you hit this API, you are getting the data in JSON format, right? And if you see the request header, I have not used any attribute. Yeah, if you see I have not used any accept type here, and by default it returns JSON. I have not passed any attribute or request header parameter except. And if you see by default the response format which web API used, it is content type JSON and cat set UTF-8. This is the default format which web API returns. Now if I pass any XML individual, for example, forget about this quality attribute, I will tell you what is this quality attribute. If you pass this XML, in that case you are trying to negotiate from the server that please send me the XML format response. Now if you hit this API, this time you are getting this XML format instead of JSON. Now if you pass JSON type, in this case you will get JSON format. But there is a problem here. I have said that by default web API returns JSON format, right? But let me put it here. I am hitting this API from browser. Here you are getting XML format. You are not getting JSON. Why this is happening? So when interviewer asks what is the default format of web API, what will you say? Whether it is returning JSON or XML by default. So by default web API returns JSON. But in this case we are getting XML. The reason behind is this browser sent request in HTML. This browser sent text HTML. This is the format, text HTML accept type, but we do not have this MediaTypeFormatter there in by default in our web API. So I will show you this, the default accept value which is sent by the different browsers. So if you see, since I am using Chrome here, and if you see Safari or Chrome, it is sending text HTML. So the browser requests the accept type as text HTML since it is not there by default in web API. And along with this, if you see here, it is passing some other values as well. I have told you in the beginning of this video that the user can pass multiple accept type in the request header. This accept type lists the MIME type of media resource that the agent is willing to process. So this accept type can contain multiple formats, comma separated, right? So that's why if you see, the first is text HTML, and after that application slash XHTML plus XML. The second priority is it is saying XML format and application slash XML. But if you see here, the quality attribute Q 0.9, and after that for asterisk 0.8. Since for XML it is sending quality attribute at 0.9. So that's why this wins. The default content negotiator class provides the default implementation of iContent Negotiator. It used several criteria to select the sorry. The content formatter must be able to serialize the type. It means the whatever type the user has passed, it must be able to serialize that type. And the second point, content negotiator look at each formatter and evaluates how well it matches the HTTP request. Since the content negotiator has multiple formatters, and based on input parameters it evaluate each and every formatter which is the best suited for the client. And how it works, how it detects that which is the best suited. So it checks supported media type and media type mapping, and these media type and media type mapping contains list of values against which, for example, in that case it can contain HTML, XML or JSON, whatever. Now after mapping this, if there are multiple match, the match with the highest quality factor wins. This rule apply here. This is the quality factor. Q is nothing but the quality factor for whichever attribute this quality factor is higher, that will be used on the priority. Now what is happening here in case of Chrome, since it sends quality factor for XML as 0.9, that's why it wins here. Similarly, I will use this from this user client, HTTP client. I am using, now I will use both this. If you see XML and JSON, I am passing both. You can pass comma separated in one, but I am using two separate accept header, but you can pass single one with comma separated value, same like this, right? But for clear understanding, I am using two accept header. At the end of the day, they will be combined at the server side. So I am passing two XML and JSON accept type, but if I am passing this, what will be the output? If you hit this time you are getting XML format. Why XML? I have passed both, and by default it should return JSON, since I have also passed the JSON type here. But why I am getting XML? The reason behind is I have passed quality attribute for XML as 0.8 and for JSON 0.7. Since this quality factor is higher than this, that's why it is returning XML. If you reverse this, let me make it 7 here, and I will make this at 8. Now if you hit this, you are getting JSON, not XML, right? So that is the reason behind this browser. When you hit this browser, it returns XML, not JSON, because the quality attribute, quality factor is greater in this browser case. The same case I am using is text HTML, the same format which browser use, text HTML as quality factor 0.9. and this case, if you see, since I am using 0.9 here, this should win, right? But there is no proper media type formatter for this text slash HTML, then the web API engine will look for these two, because these are only defined there. Now let me exclude this query. You are getting JSON here. Why you are getting JSON? Because here you have specified the quality factor for JSON as 0.8 and for XML 0.7, and for HTML you have defined as 0.9. Since this is highest one, but there is no matching for this, but in between these two XML and JSON, since JSON has higher quality factor value, that's why it is returning JSON. If you reverse it again, let me make it 8 here, and for this it is 7. Now if you hit this, you are getting XML, because this XML has higher quality value. So this is, if there are multiple match, the match with the highest quality factor wins. So that's why you are getting XML here. If no match are found, the content negotiator try to match on the media type of the request body, if any. Now let me change this. Let me save this. This is a post method. which one, this post one. In this API I have used this add customer, and that is the post method. Now this is the post method, and in this case the rule says that if you are not specifying any header, in that case what will happen, the engine will look into the request body parameter. If there are no match, the content negotiator simply if no match found, the content negotiator try to match the media type of the request body, if any. Since in this case I am posting some data to the server and the format is XML, right? I am posting this data and I am not specifying any header type, whether accept and content type. If you see here, you are getting error, unsupported media type. Why we are getting this error message? Because you are not specifying any type. The server is unable to decide what is the format of a request body, because this is a post parameter, post request, and in post request, because this data is not serializable there, because for serialization and deserialization there must should be type, because based on that the formatter decides what formatter it has to use, and you have not specified any type. What is the type of your request body? That's why you are getting this error message. Now let me specify the type. What is my type? I am specifying content type is XML. I am telling the server that I am posting data in XML format. Let me send this. See, you are getting response from there. And by default it is returning JSON. Now let me specify a type which is not there. I am defining accept type as text plain. Now if I say here, what happened this time? I am posting the data in XML format, but here this time, since I have specified the accept type as text plain, and there is no match for this accept type. Now this rule, what it says, if no match are found, the content negotiator try to match on media type of the request body. Since my request body is in XML format, that's why it is returning XML. But if you specify accept type as JSON, in that case, since there is matching formatter, media type formatter against this JSON, it will return JSON. Similarly, if you pass JSON here, it will return JSON. If you want in XML format, you can specify accept type as JSON or XML. Now after a formatter, if there are still no match, the content negotiator simply pick the first formatter that can serialize the type. Now if there is no match, in that case the first one will be used in the content negotiator. After the formatter is selected, the content negotiator choose the best character encoding by looking at the supporting encoding type. That is the same. First formatter will be selected, and after that the character encoding, and after that language property if there is defined anyone. So by this way the content negotiator match for the appropriate type. Now I will show you that this problem sometimes the interviewer may ask that how you can use this, that the Chrome browser returns XML, but if you want this data to be in JSON, then what can you do? How you can make this Chrome browser to return JSON instead of XML? So there are multiple approach and multiple things that you can do that, but I will show you one by one for each. The first way, and that is most forward, that you can use you can remove the XML formatter at all. But before doing that, let me show you how this work. So I will run this project in the debug mode, and this will be the API. In this API, if you see, I have defined a customer object here, and I have to return this from the different format. First, the pipeline get the iContent negotiator service from the HTTP configuration object. This is the configuration object, get content negotiator. This is the content negotiator, it will return, and on this negotiator I am using type of what is the type that I want to serialize, and this request contain the request attribute, request header, which user has specified, this one, accept type. These are in here, request attribute, and configure the formatter, the collection of media formatter. I will run this in the debug mode, and similarly, if there is some result, if no formatter is found, in that case it will return some error, exception, for not safe, not acceptable. Otherwise, if there is any matching found, in that case it will return the formatter and media type. Now I will run this. This is the same thing which the content negotiator use in this abstraction HTTP action result, but I have written the same code here. Let me run this project in the debug mode, and I will show you what is the type you are receiving here. Previously you can use this type of logic, but since Web API 2 there is introduction of HTTP action result, so you can use that abstraction directly. In Web API 1 we can use the different type of HTTP message. If you see here, previously I was using this OK customer and OK, and this by default return HTTP action result. For example, I am using OK, it's nothing but the 200. Now our project is running, port number is 55664 and 55664 port number is same. This is a get method. If you see here, this one is the get method, and now if you hit this API, now see here what it returns. Step over this negotiator, if you see, exclude match on type only. This and this request, if you see here what information this request parameter content, negotiator dot negotiate. If you see here the request, it contains all the attributes or header that is passed from the user. Accept encoding, zip, deflate, br, accept language English US and Q 0.9, and accept, if you see here, XML, JSON, text, CSV. These are the accept, and from where they are getting this accept. These are the accept. If you see, I have checked all the type, so that's why it is posting all the format, accept header format there. And this configuration of formatter, and this formatter, if you see, I have 4 formatter: JsonMediaTypeFormatter, XmlMediaTypeFormatter, and FormUrlEncodedMediaTypeFormatter, and JQueryMvcFormUrl. These are the 4 MediaType formatter which is by default there in MVC. So this collection contains all the formatter, and this request contains the user type format which it has requested, the user has requested. So now this negotiator will match against this formatter. Let me go to the next step here. Now this result, if you see here, formatter, it select JsonMediaTypeFormatter by default. How it select JsonMediaTypeFormatter here? Newton's of JSON serializer and request member selector, required member selector of this is used. This is being used here because if you see here in this user there are some required attribute there, that's why that is also used. Since we are not getting null value here, result has something, means it the formatter decide or finds the appropriate formatter. If you see text JSON and application JSON, this is supported media type. If you remember in the beginning I have told that each and every formatter has some supported media type. So this JsonMediaTypeFormatter contains applications as JSON and text/JSON, these two type of media supported media type. If user pass these two type, then it will be able, the JsonMediaTypeFormatter will be able to serialize and deserialize these two types. And similarly supported encoding, UTF-8 encoding and Unicode encoding, these two different encoding mechanism by default it contains. And for serialization it use JSON Newton's of JSON for serialization, and MediaTypeMapping, XML HTTP request header mapping, because in this case I am not posting any data. MediaTypeCharset application JSON. So these are the attribute here there. Let me, since this the result is not null, this will not be executed, and otherwise the negotiator will come here and object content customer formatter, whatever value we will have, JsonMediaTypeFormatter will be used. Here it is decide what is the, if you see here, this content negotiator try to find out which will be the best suited formatter, and this one, after selecting that, this logic will use that formatter and media type, and based on that it will serialize that and return to the user. Now let me use the continue here. you are getting JSON here, because in all of these, since I have not used any quality factor, they are on the same priority. That's why this JSON will be used by default. Now let me move this JSON here, and this time I will remove this as well and this as well. Now if you see here, this time you are getting XML, because this time I have passed XML there. And if you remove this and only pass this text, this time there will be no match. This time if you see here, the request contain header text CSV, but in this case the result JsonMediaTypeFormatter. Since there is no match, this JSON is the first one, that is why it is selected, and it will be return JSON. If you remove this, only pass this XML, this time XmlMediaTypeFormatter is selected. Why this is selected? Because you have passed only this XML. So this negotiator will try to find out what is the best possible way, best possible matching, and from that it will select the formatter, and after selecting this formatter, it use that formatter to deserialize or serialize that request and response. Now you are getting XML. So that's how the content negotiation work, and how the negotiator find out the best possible content type, encoding, decoding, or serialization, deserialization. Now coming to the next point, what will happen if you will try to make this browser to return JSON instead of XML. So the first way is, either you can remove the XML formatter at all. So I will show you one by one. In global.axx you can register any custom media type formatter, or you can clear or remove any formatter. So first way, if you want to return only JSON from your web API, in that case there are two ways. I can remove the XML formatter completely. So here if you see, first I am clearing all the formatters, and then I am adding this JSON media type formatter. Or what you can do, you can only remove, if you see formatter that's XML formatter that supported media type dot clear, this clear or remove the XML formatter. You can use either of these way. So I will use the first one. Now I am removing this XML formatter all. Now this time if you run this program, Control F5, so now since you have removed the all the formatters here, and now if you have added JSON media type formatter, only this will be the default formatter for each and every request, whether you are asking for XML or JSON or any type, it will return by default JSON. Why? Because I have removed the XML formatter all together. Now I am requesting for XML type, but you are getting JSON, right? If you hit this API from the browser, you are getting JSON, not XML, though the browser has asked for this format, text HTML and XML with quality factor 0.9, but still we are getting JSON, not XML. Why this is happening? Because there is no matching for any request type. There is only one type, that is JSON. That's why whatever you are asking for, it will always and always return JSON. If you post both XML and JSON, you will get JSON all. But the problem with this approach is that since this is the beauty of web API, that it can return different format of result based on the user input. So now since you have removed this XML formatter, is this remove, or you can say this hides, this remove the beauty of web API, that is content negotiation. So this is not the proper way. Somehow we have to achieve this result by keeping this content negotiation, right? So let me drop this idea. I will not use this to clear all this format. Now the first and simplest solution is, let me add this supporting media type. I have added supported media type in text.html. What I am trying to do here, I am adding media type, and where I am adding this supported media type text/html in JSON formatter. In JSON formatter, I have added one more supported media type. Previously in this example I have shown you in this one here I have shown that in this formatter there is only one JS application says JSON and text/JSON, right, in this JSON. And now what I am doing here, I am adding one more media type header value, that is text/html. And now this time what will happen, whenever the content negotiator try to match against JSON formatter, it will find that there is media type text/html also, and that is the type which browser asked, text HTML. In that case the content negotiator will pick that JSON formatter because it now had support for text HTML, and it will return the JSON format instead of XML, because now there is matching happen against this text/HTML. Let me show you. I will run this program in Control F5. Now if you see, this time it will return JSON. I have commented out this, please remember this. Now if you hit this, you are getting JSON, not XML. And how this happen? Because now I tell the JSON media type formatter that this can accept text/HTML type as well, and that's what the browser sent to the server. But there is a problem here. Let me execute the same in HTTP client. text/html, if you send here, you are getting this type of JSON, but the content type, if you see, the content type is text/html. It is not returning JSON. It should be content/JSON, but the content type is still text/html. So there is something missing, because this is a shortcut way. You have just tell text/html should be accepted in JSON formatter, but you have not defined other logic, other parts for this, that what will be the logic to serialize, deserialize, and setting the response header values. So those things are missing here. That's why it only the first part that content negotiator use, this stage, this one, right here, this part, this logic, when the content negotiator will try to exclude this collection of formatter, since this collection of formatter include text/html, this will return the JSON formatter. Why? Because there is matching of the media type formatter here. But after that, these parts, when this try to serialize the response or return, at that moment of time you have not written any logic, and these logic will append here, because that's why whatever it is getting, it is returning the same. But if someone, there is a user which is written some logic based on this content type, in that case this is HTML, text/html, but the actual content is in JSON format. So this is the contradiction. So now this approach is now also not good. So I cannot use this type of solution as well, right? Let me close this. So what is the solution for this? Let me comment out. Now you can think that what I can use, that I will exchange what, or you can say I will swap the value. This is also a temporary solution. What I am trying to do here, in JSON formatter media type mapping, here I have used supported media type. Remember, supported media type means what are the media type that JSON formatter can support for encoding, decoding, serialization and deserialization. That's where I am adding this. But here what I am trying to do, I am adding the JSON formatter that request header mapping. This request header mapping, if you remember, from here, request header mapping, this one media type mapping, I am using this request header mapping, and in this request header mapping I am using accept text HTML. It means when the accept type is text HTML and I am using string comparison ignoring case, when the accept type is text HTML, replace this with application/JSON. It means whenever user try to pass any text/HTML, it will override or replace that with application/JSON. So that's why this will return the JSON media type mapping you are changing here. Now let me run this program. This time if you execute this query is API, you are getting JSON, right? Your logic is working fine, but if you check this from this HTTP client, you are getting JSON, and content type is also updated as JSON here, right? So this is a solution for this, but the problem with this approach is, let me show you, where you pass XML, you are getting the XML data. It means this will use XML, JSON and other format as well. Means there is no compromise with the beauty of web API, that is content negotiation. Whatever format you are requesting, you are getting that data, right? Similarly, if you change the 7 and 8, you are getting JSON, and if you are using text HTML, now let me put it at 8, and for XML let me put it at 7. This time if you request this query, you are getting proper result. Now the problem is here, if you see this request, what is happening here? The quality attribute, quality factor which you are sending here, it is compromised here. I am passing text HTML, the value is, quality factor value is 0.8, and for XML the value is 0.9. It means it should return the XML, not JSON. So this time this quality factor is compromised here. If you pass this, you are not getting that result. Now let me go with one more approach. Let me comment out this. You can use custom formatter. So in interviewer may ask that how you can add the custom formatter. So instead of doing this shortcut thing, what you can do, you can write your own custom formatter. So I have used this HTML JSON formatter, and this is inherited from JsonMediaTypeFormatter. JsonMediaTypeFormatter, if you go here, this is inherited from base JsonMediaTypeFormatter. And in this I am doing the same thing here. Supported media type, I am adding this text slash HTML, and serialization.formatting I am using indented, means they will be in proper format. And similarly I am overriding default content header value. What is the use of this? This is nothing but this is overriding the default content header value. It means the value previously in the first case, you are seeing that this value is not updated, right? So this, up to update this is the set default content header and media type. application slash JSON, that is doing this one. If you use this, and this time also for registering, you can use global configuration.configuration.formatter.add, the same thing like you have used here, this one, and this, that's why you were using here. So you can add this formatter and now it will work as expected. If you run this program, you are able to get the response format in, see, this time you are getting in formatted way, and this is why this is looking in the proper format, because you have used this line serializer setting dot formatting and formatting dot intended. So this line of code make this in looking in this proper formatting with indentation. Similarly, if you hit this query, see, this time that problem in the previous case what we are facing, this is now resolved. I have used this accept with quality factor 0.8 and this accept with quality factor 0.9, means this XML should be win by the content negotiator, and that's why it is returning XML. And if you see, the content type is XML. If you remove this XML and only use this HTML, this time you are getting JSON format, and this content type is also updated. So this way, if you see, this is the proper way to use to override or change any media type formatter. This time you are able to get your result without compromising anything. Anything means this quality factor and content negotiation, everything is working fine. So you must have to use this type of logic when you have to append any media type formatter, or if you have to change the default content header. Now coming to the last point of this video, that how can you create your custom media type formatter. If you remember here, I have not used any media type formatter. I am just appending supported media type formatter in the existing media type formatter, whether it is JSON or XML. But if you have to create your own media type formatter, in that case you can also do that. After creating, you can register. So to do that, you can, I am creating a CSV formatter here that will return the data in CSV format. So to create your own media type formatter, so there are two base class from where you can derive your custom media type formatter: buffered media type formatter and media type formatter. So when you use buffered media type formatter, it is very simple because there is no async code. But in case of media type formatted, it use async code for reading and writing the data from the stream. So the problem with this asynchronous and non-asynchronous means when you use buffered media type formatter, in that case there will be lag because there is no async way to read from the data from the stream. So you can either use both buffered media type or media type format, but in this example I have used buffered media type. So what you have to do first, you have to derive your class from this buffer media type, and in the constructor, because we know for serializing and deserializing, coding and encoding and decoding, it wants you have to add media type value. So this dot supported media type dot add, you can add CSV and applications plus CSV, you can whatever you want you can add. Some I am using only one media type, it means it will process and handle text plus CSV, and optionally, since we know that the character encoding and encoding you can also use, so that's why you can use supported encoding dot add, for example ISO 88591. So you can add this as well if you want. Now you have to override the can write type. Override the can write method to indicate which type the formatter can serialize. Since in this case I want to serialize the type of user type, because in this example I have to return only this user information, user model, right? But if you want, you can make this generic as well. If you want to create me a video on generics, I will create that. Please do comment in the video. I will make a video on generic as well. So system.type, if type of equal to user, if type is user, it is returning true, and it might be possible that user can want to return a list of user, that's why enumerable is assignable from type. If yes, so for it this will check that whether it can write type or not. Similarly, can read type as well. Similarly, override the can read method to indicate which type the formatter can deserialize. It means if you have to read the value from the string, it means user can pass the CSV value and this formatter should be able to read that value. In that case, you have to write this logic as well. For time being, here I am returning false, means it cannot read CSV value from the stream, means user cannot pass CSV value. If you want to do that as well, you have to write that logic here. Now write to stream. Now this method will use to write the response to the user agent in the stream. It means it will contain the logic to make the comma separate value and put it into the output stream. So that logic is written here, and this will also use the character encoding if you have defined, and this is the logic to write the stream, write to the stream. Finally, if you want to read from stream, you have to use read from stream method as well. So this is the simple method, and after creating this custom media type formatter, you have to register it in the global.asax file. So for registering, the method is same, global configuration.configure.formatter.add custom CSV formatter. Now if you run this program, Control F5, now this will return the CSV value. Customer detail, this case I will use text slash CSV. That's what I have used, right? In this I have used text slash CSV. Now whenever user pass any accept type as text CSV, the content negotiator will match this media type against the formatter, and it will find that custom CSV formatter is there which can support or can use this text CSV, and this will be used. Now if you extrude this, see you are getting the comma separated value 1 Thomas, this is ID, name, age, email ID and its admin property is here. That is, and if user asks for XML, it will return XML. If user asks for JSON, it will return JSON here. So that is the beauty of content negotiation. If you want, you can write your own custom media type formatter. And the last thing from this video, that sometime there is a need that if you see here, since this JSON format, this ID, name and email ID, these are not proper way of declaring the properties. They should be in camel casing, right? And since you have created your model and they contain a lot of properties and so many models, so what is the way to make these properties as camel casing in web API? So you can do that in a very short time. What you can do, you can use this setting. So what will this do? This will formatter.json formatter serializer setting contract resolver new camel property name contract resolver. You can use this to use this camel casing. And similarly, there is a requirement that there should be indentation. The JSON result should be in proper indented format. In that case, you can use this property as well, formatter.json formatter. And similar, this can be used for XML as well. So if you want this thing for XML, you can use that for XML as well. For now, I am using this for only for the JSON. If you run this time, let me exclude this query. You are able to get seed ID, I small and small, email ID is admin. Now the property is properly in camel casing, and similarly proper indentation should be also there, because I have used this uh, XML. It is running XML because I have commented the code. If you see here, I have commented the customer formatter. That's why it is returning XML. But if you want JSON, you can also use that. So that's all from this video. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you have learned something from this video, please subscribe to this channel. And if you want me to make any video on a specific topic, please do comment in this video. I will post a video on that topic very soon. Thank you very much for watching this video.